Welcome to the Fantasy HQ podcast, all things NRL fantasy. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Facebook. Your hosts, Frosty and Stevo. Welcome everyone to Fantasy HQ, all things NRL fantasy podcast. Tonight it's Frosty and myself, Stevo. And Frosty, I feel like you've been ducking my messages after last week's awful second half performance from the Dogs. So tell me, how's the last few days been for you? And then do you think you'll actually make it through the podcast tonight?
Hey, Stevo. Evening. Hope you're going well. But if you want the inside scoop out of Dogs camp, hey, they're just getting bored. They got to 11-2 and they just went, you know what? Is this the NRL? Is it that easy? We'll just bring in a young stud. We'll blow them in mid-season. We won't wait to the off-season. And they are just chopping and changing and pretty much treating the regular season as pre-season, and they are just waiting for those top four finals to kick off. So, yeah, hey, interesting times with Galvin and too many cattle in the playmaking positions, and Reed's off to the Cowboys and Sexton's off to the Super League, but it'll figure itself out in time, and hopefully, the year just doesn't get blown up because of one mid-season move, but time will tell.
It's certainly been in the news a bit this past week. I see Braithen Astor saying a bit about it, but we'll see what happens with the Dogs. We'll get into tonight's show, so we've changed it up slightly as we find our feet how we want the show to go. So run sheet tonight, we have a quick recap of our personal performance of round 18, where we're ranking, and then we'll follow it up by a quick recap of tonight's TLT, then get into some trade targets and players we recommend to flick to the bin. Finally, we'll wrap it up with some key questions and our tips for round 19. So we'll get straight into you, Frosty, with your team from last week and how you went through and performed in round 18.
Yeah, sweet. Last major bye round, and the boys had up all right. I managed to score 725 and crept in 100 ranks back to about 530. So went with the pack with May, didn't risk anything silly there. And Preston come in and thankfully made it played. Otherwise, that would have been a royal disaster with the VC on him as the first game of the week. Hughes carries on going good, and a couple of trade-ins were rock stars in Mark Nawakani-Tawase and Rodwell. There is a wee cash down in a loop for my wing fullbacks moving forward. So can't complain. What about yourself, Stevo?
Yeah, so taking a look at my team there, I was happy with my round. I climbed 320 ranks, just sitting outside the top 1K now at 1027. Scored 735, so beat you by 10, Frosty. I did, however, make 4 trades. Didn't all go quite as well as I would have hoped. Did the job nonetheless. I brought in Bradley. Only scored a 24, but I intentionally brought him in as a red dot, which he is this week. So I have him on the sidelines, cashed him out. Brought in Preston like yourself. I was tossing up between Preston and Katoa and ended up losing out 32 points there. That Katoa scored, I think, a 61. So a bit disappointed there, but I still think Preston's sort of the way to go forward for the rest of the season. He's a keeper. Happy with that. Happy he's in the team. Who else we got there? Yeah, otherwise it's pretty happy. I ended up looping out Tapani with Foketi. So Foketi was my 4th trade I brought in. Scored 45, little bit of a plus side there. Otherwise though, hoping to crack the top 1K this weekend with a strong 13 for round 19.
Yeah, nice, great job.
So not too far off. Hoping to still catch the goal here, Frosty. But
yeah, hey, I'll run as fast as I can, and set that pace.
We'll get into a quick recap of round 19, TLT, which came out tonight. So I'll run through this. We won't stop too much for each. Friday night, Sharks versus Dolphins. No changes to the Sharks starting side. Talakai remains at centre. Dolphins list the Hammer to start at fullback, but could be a late out backing up from Origin with Fuller listed in the reserves. Sean O'Sullivan replaces Cody Nikorima in the 6th jersey due to his hamstring injury. Saturday, we have the Knights take on the Storm. Knights put Fletcher Hunt to the back, replacing the injured Ponga. However, welcome back Marju and Thompson back to the starting side, pushing Brayley to the bench and Schiller to the reserves. Pappy's good to go. after his calf tightness for the Storm, out late last week, pushing Meaney back to centre, while all their Origin stars are listed in the reserves and may not back up. The Dragons versus the Roosters. For the Dragons, Hamish Stewart is back via the bench, and Michael Molo pushes out after his score of 60 to the bench also. Sloane holds his starting spot on the wing. Big in there for the Roosters was Sam Walker to start at half, moving back Savilla to 6, and Sandon misses out on the 17 altogether. Fekete holds his spot on the edge with the Origin stars and Radley back on deck. Moving on there. Late game for Saturday. We have the Cowboys versus your beloved Bulldogs. Frosty. Cowboys have all their Origin stars backing up. Clifford remains in the starting side while Talangi and Bateman aren't in the 17 with injury. Bulldogs look almost full strength besides Matoya, who is out, and Galvin reverts back to his hotly debated 17th spot on the bench. We've got 3 games for Sunday, starting with the Warriors versus Tigers. Big changes for the Wars with Tuapiki and Boyd replacing C&K and Metcalf respectively. Tamari Martin remains on the bench while Catewell is listed at 23 and could look to back up after Origin. Dewey for the Tigers moves back to centre with Luai back, along with Api returning from concussion, pushing Cash Cow Tristan Hope to the bench. Jack Bird is also listed on the bench in 17. Eels versus Panthers. We have Taylor De Silva making his club debut from the bench, otherwise not much relevance in that side. Panthers named all 5 Origin players in the reserves, but I'd expect to see most of them back on Sunday, providing the Maroons don't batter them, which I'm picking they will. Last game for round 19 is the Titans versus the Broncos, and we have Campbell returning from his concussion at halfback. AJ remains at fullback. Big man David Fafita is named on the bench and could finally make his return after being out with an ankle injury since round 8. Broncos 4 Origin players all listed to back up in the starting side, with Cobbo pushed to the bench. Ben Hunt there, a big in, returns at hooker. He had a hamstring injury which kept him out the past 6 weeks. So plenty going on in the fantasy side there, Clinty. Any big surprises for you straight away?
No, well done there, Stevo. Rattled through that quite nicely. I think a couple of main points for myself probably relate to the half spots. You mentioned Sam Walker back there for the Roosters, and it'll just be interesting I'll be keeping a close eye on their balance of offense, sharing the ball, what side it goes to, and also those kicking meters. Hopefully Savala doesn't fall off a wee wagon. And likewise for the Dolphins, much the same when it comes to Katoa and Sean O'Sullivan coming in for Cody Nikorima. Just a little bit worried that may impact on both those guys' fantasy output, but time will tell. And then for the Wars, I was fingers and toes crossed for Team M, but unfortunately Boyd's got the nod, so miss out on a wee cash down there.
Could have been a nice cash down, potential decent scorer on your bench with Tamari Martin. We'll jump into our trade targets for the week. So we'll pop this up here. You want to take it away, Clinty? You've done a good job with this, listing all our positions here, who we would buy, potential keepers, a pod play, and a cash down in most categories. So if you want to lead it.
Fantastic. So those first 2 rows, they are pretty much our buys who we would recommend for the run home. In the 3 spot, some pod plays, and then number 4 down the bottom, some cash downs outside of Nafahu White, but we'll get to him very shortly. So we'll just work through position by position, starting with hooker. So we've got Connor Watson returning after Origin duties. That's going to be behind him now. It may be the last weekend where he does get a wee minute split, but after that, he'll be that 50-point average hooker for the run home. Roosters no more buys, so get him in when you can. Damien Cook, very handy through Origin period. Again, Dragons no more buys, and his output still remains good enough to be forcing his way into some people's sides. Ben Hunt returns for the Broncos at hooker as expected. Couldn't really put Ezra Mann back down to reserve grade, unfortunately. And Hooker is a place where he fancies himself for high scores, 45 to 50, and he is priced well below that at the moment. So he's looking at a good 15 points value if he can manage that. But if he scores anywhere from 40 to 45, again, underpriced and a nice wee pod play for those looking to make some inroads.
I do think...
and then hope...
just butting in,
yeah,
I do think Ben Hunt could be an interesting one if he is starting at hooker. Billy Walters on the bench there, but if he's getting 60-odd minutes playing that potential hooker and 13 role, he could be well outdoing his average of 32, whatever he's averaging. So could be an option.
Yeah, for sure. And Hope there got a start last weekend and went great guns. Certainly not going to be doing that with Coruscant back on board, but utility, he'll chip away for you. And if Coruscant does something silly or gets injured, which has been the case over the last couple of seasons, unfortunately, well, he is back scoring in those high 40s to 50s. So a nice wee hooker cash out if you're after one of those from, say, a Starling. Onto the front row. Again, returning from those Origin duties, Yo, he's looking good. He's now probably underpriced. He's crept down to somewhere around 750k, and I'll be certainly looking to get him on board as soon as I can before those price rises start getting away on us. Ruben Cotter likewise. I'm not sure if his club coach has been watching Billy Slater and how he utilises him, but round 17 he was in the back row for 80 minutes, chucked out a wee 52, and he's named there again. So promising there in the back row, but even if he's moved back to the middle rotation at some point, he's proven in seasons gone by that he can average around that 50 mark, and he's currently priced at 41, so a little bit of value there as well. Fisher Harris, again, no more buys for the Warriors. Barnett gone down, young forwards, he's going to be relied on, especially with a couple of injuries to Metcalf and the likes, if the Warriors are going to make that push to the top four in the finals. And Nafahu White, as mentioned before, he's not a cash down, but Steve and I were talking earlier in the day, and front row is really where you want to be stocking up now. There's no real room for risks or potential value. It is out and out guns, and he is one that has the dual position as well.
You don't really want to be cashing out there, like you say. Your cash outs for your centre wings that you can loop with nice and easily. Nafahu White, though, averaging 51.5 on screen there, still a break even at 26. It costs 613. He can make a lot of money, and they're going to need him to play big minutes. Even with their Origin players in the team, he's sort of someone that, you know, he's going to be there scoring. So you can sort of trust him each week to be a genuine keeper going forward, I think.
Yeah, very handy on your bench. I mean, we're not pushing for a front row starting spot, but rock solid for those 4 bench scoring options.
Especially with his
with that cover as well. Yeah. Katoa starts off the edges. Steve and I both went wrong last week, but if you've got room for another gun edge, he would be right at the top of the list. Still no more buys, and he's proven that he's got that high ceiling to his game. Maybe a little bit question mark on the base, but he's going great guns so far this year, so I would be more than happy to ride that out for the run home. Angus Crichton, again, a lot of these Origin guys are coming back a little bit underpriced, they usually do. So Yao, Cotter, Crichton's the third one. If you want to save a little bit of money because you've already got, say, a Preston or a Katoa, Crichton would be that right-hand man that you're looking to pick up.
At 603k, only 4.1% owned, he's your exact pod cut price keeper that on the run home should be averaging 50 plus. And you know, if he goes good with Walker back in the team, he can easily see himself getting back to that 60 scoring that he was at last year. So he's a quality player.
Yeah. And then a real wild card, probably the biggest pot of them all, going early on for Feeder. Gee, it's been a little bit of an ugly marriage, this one with him and Desi. But he's back in the team on the bench. And what that looks like, no one knows. So is it 20 minutes at prop? Is it 20 minutes on the edge? Or does Desi unleash him for 60 minutes on the edge? No one knows. But a break even of 56, and even if he's given 35 minutes and just rips in, he can be smashing that easily with a try or two and 10 tackle busts, a couple offloads to hand. So everyone will be sort of staying away, but that might be a wee pod, get on early those first couple of weeks and cash in on some meat pies for him. And then Suka from the Tigers is our cash down for the edge this week. Hopefully no one got caught out on the Jackbird trap named there last week, but was a late pullout. And although Suka didn't go so well last week with a 31 and 80 minutes, he's definitely shown glimpses. So if you're looking for a cash out there for a little bit of forward cover, he might just give you a 40 or 45 when you need it. Into the halves, the Chin. If you bin the Chin, look to get him back. He's gone well over the origin period. I think it was a 71 odd, and he's really held his price. So those that sort of flicked him, yes, you would have made some scores, some others, but at the same time, you're probably hoping Cleary chucked a 50 or 55 out there and started to drop some cash, but it's not to be. So sooner rather than later.
Yeah, sorry, just butting in there again.
Yes,
Cleary is one that you've got to get back in your team at some stage. This week in particular, if it's this week, it's maybe not because he's late, his last game of the round. But next week, I think he's an absolute must if his health's right. At 900k, you've sort of got to make plans this week for getting Cleary in, whether he comes in this week or whether you're just making cash.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's really important that we'll talk on a little bit later is just, again, not the tunnel vision for this last minor buy round. And it's a fair bit of cash, so you can't just be going up from a mid-range easily to Cleary, so don't get caught up on that wee trap there. Matty Burden, my boy, Burden's boys, definitely looking to get him in. Although his average is looking a little bit well below par for a keeper moving forward, if you take out his injury gains, which he's had 2 of this year, he's rocking a 50 average there at 5/8. So that's good enough for me. And again, not necessarily a starting half, but one of those 4 scorers on the bench. He could be a pod play for me. But yeah, you don't play for injuries. You don't plan for injuries. And without those, a 50 average is good enough for me. So undervalued at the moment in my eyes. Pod play, Sam Walker, talked about him briefly before. And look, if he hits the ground running, he could be averaging 50 easily. So again, if you're trying to make some ranks, everyone's going to be starting off him for a week or 2 to see if he passes the eye test. But we all know his talent, we all know his potential, and that could be the pod play. Not too expensive at the moment, so have we look there, depending on the makeup of your team. And to the final spot here in the halves, certainly one that's got away from me in Latu Fainu. He's proven his worth. And if you've watched his games, just looks like a talent. He looks like an out-and-out star of the game moving forward. Quick off the mark, ball playing, he's got it all, kick game. But he's probably getting a little bit away from me in my plans. I think he's sitting around the 380k mark. But again, he might be a cash down half option who's going to uphold 38, 40 point average in the run home. So certainly one to look out for if you're after some half depth.
I think if you were wanting to cash out, say, Savala this week because you're afraid he wasn't going to score well with Walker back in the team and you needed that bit of cash and it was your third half, maybe Latu's one that you can sort of keep going forward as a backup. But yeah, otherwise, for me, he's sort of priced out. But if I'm going, I want a cheap half. But he could be good cover if you're dropping down Savala to get some cash with someone.
Yeah, great point. Into the centres. I'll start with a man that most teams have, but if you don't have him, he is right at the top of the list with Dylan Lucas. Just out and out gun, don't need to talk too much there, but anytime you get a 80-minute edge available at centre in fantasy, they usually go, and he is certainly the case there. So pick him up if you haven't. They do have another buy coming, but just check your team and your balance, and if you are able to cover that, buy him whenever you can. Likewise, probably talked about less than the likes of a Lucas or a Farnworth this year, but Firma, I've had him since the start of the year and he has not let me down one little bit. In around that 50 average, 700k, and we should be just stocking the centres with these 2 guys and Herbie if possible, definitely 2 of the 3. And if you don't quite have the coin, Firma is a great option and he's not going to let you down. Slight risk of being moved to the centres at times, but thankfully hasn't been the case so far this season. Isaac Tago, pod play, If you've played fantasy for a few years, you know this guy can get going and be that 45 to 50 point average in a solid Panthers team over the last few years, and they look to be finding their form again. They've been battling and scratching away, but they look to be clicking it, and the confidence to come back into that club, and he might just reap the rewards outside of Cleary. So, again, one that's for the pod, certainly not advising him if you are solid in the rankings, but if you're around the 5, 6, 7,000 mark and looking for those points of difference, he could really start turning it on. And the cash down, Talakai in around that 330k mark, but again, looks to be running at that centre role, and he will certainly do a job. He has in seasons gone by been a 40-point average there at centre and a career average of 39 when he gets to 80 minutes at centre across multiple seasons. So undervalued, you might even get that 150 to 200k out of him for a late season cash down again if you've got the trades up the sleeve. So anything there, Stevo, in the centres?
No, I mean, Lucas and Fermor, if you can get them in, that's great. Their keepers, good coverage as well if you need an edge. A few people might be playing Lucas this week in edge with a couple like Duncan and Kolomatangi out. So he can cover your edge this week and then or Fermor, and then into the centres next week when you got some people back. And then, yeah, Tago. I think last year he was in a similar position and then finished really well. As they sort of ramped up towards the end, he started firing again. And yeah, he's been average this year, but he's got that potential to go and score 60s, as does Talakai. Talakai's probably got another few weeks. He's a good cash out. If you need someone after that, he's then going to be sitting in your reserve. So, yeah, happy days.
Nice. And to finish it off, in the wing fullbacks, Reece Walsh finally getting a mention. Much like the Panthers, the Broncos have sort of been scraping away and battling away, and Madge has been under the pump all season long, but they seem to have been clicking, and with that, Reece Walsh has been averaging 52.7 over the last 3 games and has been looking much better, although still battling a knee, and that's probably only positive signs for fantasy. If he's that banged up and limping around before kickoff and busting out 52 or 53 point average over 3 games, he could be anything in this stretch home if he can get fully healthy. So he's the top of the list this week. Carraz, again, he's still up there. If you haven't got him, dual position, wing fullback, centre. He's just a gun. He's got a fantasy game. As a Doggies fan, he gives me a heart attack every second set with trying to offload a hand 20 metres out from our own line. But when it comes good, geez, it's good for fantasy. So
probably my favourite.
If you're not a Doggies fan, if you're not a Doggies fan, probably one of the top 5 watches in fantasy. So get him in, enjoy the watch. Jaden Campbell, point of difference just because of the price and the situation, coming off an injury game, a high break even of around 80, sitting at about 650k. So you're probably thinking, well, he's cheap, but hey, he goes for a 50 couple of weeks in a row, and I might pick him up for 600k, 620k. But take the pod. I'm just about taking that pod option myself. What's 30k at the end? We've made our money. And if he busts out a 70 in an attacking game against the Broncos, which they always get up for, and then backs it up with another high 60s, and there are teams out there waiting for those points to see what happens, and you pick up 130, hey, you're in front of the game.
Jaden Campbell's an exciting one to have in your team. I think he's had the last basically 2 weeks off. He got concussed pretty early on in that game, and then last week off. So someone that's a definite keeper, I think top 3 wing fullback. So, and then covers the half as well if you need him. 677k, he's going to drop a little bit, but I mean, he could make you 70 this week and climb you some ranks early days. So people that held him will be happy he's back.
And to finish off is Twala. Played last week to sort of just fill a spot with Origin on and some injuries and bits and pieces. Scored a 30. He's only went up 4k, so he's at 304, but he's probably sitting a little bit pretty for that. And Montoya's out for a clean-up surgery of his neck, so he's going to miss the next 6 weeks. So if Twala can put a couple of performance on and keep that spot for the Dogs there, hey, he could be a wee moneymaker. Certainly at worst, a nice cash down option, but maybe even a wee moneymaker if he can cash in there on the left side if he slots in there.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't mention him last week in the podcast, but you and me in chats before the game started on Friday night, we were talking about him. And it was someone I was very close to getting. Did have that good coverage. Potentially, he does end up losing a spot at some stage, and then could be a red dot or another cash out again. But yeah, I think he's a pretty good option to bring in for coverage if he's got the next sort of 5 weeks lined up. So not a bad option. For me, though, it worked bringing in Bradley because it gave me that extra 40k, which this week allows me to do exactly what I want. So yeah, good work on that, Clinty.
Yeah, thanks. Across that, just probably a couple of themes. Like the cash out options there is one you're after for the run home. And then up the top, a couple of common themes, just to summarise it, is cut price origin guys coming back that are going to be keepers, and also guys without buys. They were the main things popping through there. So keep those in mind as you're going over your trade targets team.
Fantastic work. I think it's a good bit of information there. And we'll pop that up on the socials tomorrow probably. But it won't have all the information on there, so the best place was to listen to this. So, good work, Clint. We'll transition in now to our in the bin, which is going to be our sellers or our players we don't necessarily want.
On report, no mitigation in the bin. 10 minutes in the bin.
There we have it, 10 minutes in the bin. Round 19.
Gee, how good is a bit of Fossey, eh?
He loves it. I think that clip was from, who was it? Nas, first hit of the game on Collins knocking him out with a head high. So
yeah,
it was, and that was in a semi-final, I think, as well. So
yeah, it was.
I remember watching that live thinking, oh, this is crazy.
Yeah. So talking about in the bin team, we've got our 3 tiers there. Goodbye and don't second guess into one more week. So right at the top there under goodbye, hey, they are just straight out of the team. No questions asked. Get them gone. Don't second guess. They're sort of the players that we feel fantasy players are going, oh, possibly could this happen? Or if I just wait, that second guessing in fantasy more often than not gets you into trouble. So we'll be just trying to help you out there and just, don't second guess that. That thought's popped into your head for a reason. Get them out. And then one more week, they'll be the ones that at most one more, and it's probably a painful week, but if you're willing to grit the teeth, well, we won't hold anything against you if you're holding them for one more week. So to get it going, Metcalf, looking at the stats before, he was still in around that 15-17%, which was just mind-blowing for someone who's gone with an ACL. And maybe it was those loops for that last major buy round, with a few half options going last week with Savala and Hughes and co. But he's got to go by now, unless he is a loop option. But that's a lot of money to be looping. Ideally, you've got to cash out somewhere that you can utilise. Burbo, mentioned him last week. Hey, he's done a hell of a job. Made north of 100k, but a low score last week has got him in that goodbye category. Flick him off. Don't put yourself through the pain. He has surpassed expectations, so cash in where you can. CMK, for anyone that's had him, pay 4 weeks. Again, don't bother flick it, that's too long. 1 to 2 to 3 weeks, possibly ask yourself some questions, but 4 weeks too long. And again, Jaden Brayley, a little bit left field, but there's plenty of chat around the community about potential 9 for the rest of the season and 50 points and cut price and all that sort of chat. And it's not to be, unfortunately. Forwards have come back into the rotation and Crossland back to 9, Brayley back to the bench. So a goodbye. Don't be hanging on to him any longer. Don't second guess. Montoya, again, 6 weeks, and you're thinking that's a long time. We've just been talking about looping. They're very handy for the run home. And it's lower price of the mid-ranges, and you're probably thinking, it's not too much. Do I use them as a loop? But again, cash right down, get a 230k red dot that you know is no chance of coming back, and utilise that as your loop. Cash, and don't be holding that 200k to your name and wasting that away there. Fuel Aiken, brought for the run home for most teams, I'd imagine, but hasn't quite lived up to it. A little bit under par so far. That risk of moving to the centres like a couple of weeks ago. Just not quite there. There's plenty of options. I'd be jumping straight to an Angus Crichton if I did have Aiken myself. So there's a couple there, Katoa, Preston. I'd be just moving up. There's a bit of no man's land there for Aiken. And yeah, just there'd be a lot of thoughts there, but we think shoot him off.
Definitely want to trade.
Dangerous game to be playing.
Totally agree.
Hubner again. It's a long hold if you manage to hold, and the second thoughts will be, do I hold him one more? Can I squeeze any more out of him? Hey, job's done. You've done well enough. Flick him off. Either cash right down or move him up. Not necessarily right up, but potentially to one of those bench scorers for your own home. And Hamish Stewart, much the same. Named again this week. Will he get his minutes back? There's a chance this, chance that. Hey, play it safe. The run home. If you're wanting to sort of stay with the pack and be moving your way forward and not backwards, it's not about these second-guessing games and 50-50s. Be smart with them. Cash him down or move him up, but certainly not holding it and hoping. And then one more week to finish it off. Bateman, his last 6 weeks have been good. A couple of 40s, a couple of 50s, and a couple of 60s for in around that 50 average mark. Hopefully 1 week injury. So if you're not desperate, you're not needing a back row this week, we would be more than happy if he was in our sides to be holding that 1 week and to see those 50s coming back. Ponga, we've talked about loops, and he is a pricey loop option, but if you're like myself and you'll stack yourself full of wing fullback guns, I am not in the position of having Ponga. I certainly wish I would, and I would be holding 1 more week because I'm running this minor buy with Drinkwater on the bench and no chance at a wing fullback loop. So if I guess wrong and he goes for a 70 and a Kraz goes for a 30 or someone like that I've got in his place, I will be unhappy. So we can understand if you've got Ponga and you've got some gun wing fullbacks there to play around with and get that best score. Hold for 1 more, but certainly after that, no more minor buys, no more major buys. Get Ponga out after 1 more.
Just jumping in, I think that's the key with winger fullbacks and centres, that they're the most volatile position where on any day they could score 70s, but they could also score a 20 or a 30. Compared to your mids and your edges, should realistically be getting that sort of good base. So that's where you want your loops and someone that you can loop with for your fullbacks so you can take that higher score. I mean, that's the difference between 30 points and around. That's a considerable gain.
Yeah, 100%. And one of my others that I've had for a long time is Teddy, and he got bailed last week, but if he's sitting on a 24 with 10 to go this week, I don't have that fallback option of Drinkwater because no Ponga to loop in, so I will be fingers and toes crossed there. Jack Bird, again, we talked about it earlier. Hopefully no one did, but if you did fall into that trap, picking up a cut price, 40 average sort of edge back row there. Just 1 more week. He's named on the bench. It might be a late change. Just see his role, and if it's no good, flick him next week. But yeah, potentially 1 more week in him. And Joseph Tapani, Stevo, some really good thoughts from you and some insight here. We talked about Yao earlier. He was number 1 for our front rowers to get in this week, and that's a potential move for a lot of coaches. But just talk us through your thoughts that you had through Tapani and moving forward with him.
Yeah, Tapani, I mean, he's lost a lot of money. He's down to $6.75. So it hurts to sell him when he is a bit cheaper now, but he's off the back of a 37, and he's over the last few weeks he has been playing less and less. I looped him out. I didn't even trust playing him last week. I ended up buying in Faketi to play over him. So if I'm doing that, do I really want him to keep him on the way home as a starting mid? No. I want to get Yo in. Yeah. Tapani has 2 more buys this week and then 1 coming up in around 23 or something. So it's a big risk to keep him. A lot of people have him as well. So if you can pod up over and go to a Yo, you're potentially going to get good gains there. The only thing I would say, though, Tapani's always got games in him where he can go ballistic, so that would hurt. But yeah, I'm happy over the next period to get him. If you've got enough trades. If you've got no trades and you already need to make trades come round 20 when we get 8 more, I'd probably hold off them. But if you've got a couple up your sleeve and you're sort of planning to get a couple Origin players, Tapani's one for me that can go.
Yeah, and some might view it as a luxury trade, might they? But I think with the bye this week and the solo bye coming up, as well as you talked about his minutes, we know that usually Tapani's a bit of a slow start to the season, and Ricky likes to just ease him in, but it seemed to be the opposite. It started heavy, Raiders have climbed to number 1, and if they sort of sit there and get a wee lead of a couple of games with 4 rounds to go, Tapani might be getting those lower minutes. I mean, yes, he got a bit of an ankle injury, but I'm sure he could have got through a little bit more than 5 minutes in that second half last week. So, I think there are some real dangers with Ricky Stewart there, and he will have his eyes on playoffs and obviously winning a title and not keeping him at 60 minutes for fantasy. So, yeah, certainly one on the radar of heading out the door when it comes to my team.
Ricky Stewart is always one that's hard to trust. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll move on now to some key questions I've got for you, Frosty, to help answer for our listeners. So, first question, what are the key things to consider for this final minor buy round?
Yeah, I think like I mentioned last week, it's just not getting that tunnel vision, and it's a little bit tricky in a couple of positions and not just surviving and fielding your 13 for this round, and that's all you're thinking about. The run home is really important. You just need to be double checking things like you don't have 3 guys to a team, like a Raiders. They might be potentially 1, and you're going to get stuck in a solo round, either taking that hit score-wise and rank-wise, or on the trade front. And if you're sitting on 1 trade and you're only going to have that 8 or 9, that's not what you're wanting. You want to avoid those sort of things. So it's just that longer-term vision. Yeah. Cashing in on those guys with no buys left, cashing in on those Origin guys coming back with underpriced value. So they are the big ones for me. Anything for yourself?
No, it's the same. You don't want to blow it all out right now, and you want to be targeting who's going to stay. It's like we've said multiple times. It's keepers and cashies. Using your money wisely. So if you're trading, make sure it's not just like you're looking at this one trade. You're thinking, okay, 2 trades ahead. Is that going to leave me with enough to do such and such? So, like we said about Cleary, if you don't have Cleary, you're going to try and get at him. So you've got to make trades to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the end of the day, it's 13 this week. You want to have 13. If you've got 13, I wouldn't go making excess trades to go trading out green dots this week. So yeah, no, I like what you said, Clinty.
Nice.
The next one, talking on sort of this week then, do you risk bringing in Origin stars or wait for next week?
Yeah, this one's always an interesting one, isn't it? And I think it's case by case. The draw plays a big role, so I think there's some like the Broncos, who are the very last game of the round, and the Panthers just for them on the Sunday, so that's really handy. I certainly don't know if Haas backs up. I mean, he's just had 10 days in Origin camp with a bad back and has pretty much done 0 training. So even with those few days up in sleep, I just don't see him backing up. So that would be one I keep an eye on, and make sure you have a fallback plan if he is to be a late scratching. Panthers guys, again, you're saying earlier you'd like to think they back up, but again, just having those fallback plans and making sure you don't get stuck into a trap of, say, trying to get out a Friday night player for Cleary, and clearly they're locked in, and it comes to Sunday, Nathan's ruled out, well, you're in trouble. So that would be the big ones. The early ones, a bit easier. I don't think there's much fantasy relevant in the early ones anyway. Hammer, not really fantasy relevant. On the Friday, early Saturday, you have the Storm. That'd be an interesting one, but you can sort of then probably work the round after that Storm one and go from there. What about yourself, Stevo, and the Origin guys coming back this year?
Yeah, I think the Roosters players you can sort of trust. Because they play relatively early on, you can make your trades around the Roosters relatively easy. So the likes of Crichton, if you're wanting to bring him in. But like you say, very hard to bring in Broncos and Panthers unless you're trading out equal money from the same team. And there's not really many options to do that. I'd personally stay clear. I want to get Cleary in. I'm not going to this week purely for that. I do suspect, though, they will start most of those Origin players because there's no way they're going to want to drop any games. It is the Eels, so maybe they're relatively confident. But yeah, you never know. It's always a chance as well. You play Origin on Wednesday, you back up that weekend, you have a little bit of tightness, and then you go and pull your calf, pull a hammy or something on Origin after weekend, and then you've just brought them in and you've lost them then for the rest of the season potentially, or at least a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden, that's you in a spot of bother. So 1 week, if you've got enough numbers and you don't need to, it's a good option to potentially hold. People like Tapani, because he's on a bye, you can loop, and if you've got, say, someone playing that's gone average and you're able to loop a Tapani and then trade him for a Yo at the end of the round, that there works.
Yeah.
So that there sort of works as a bring-in. It's still something I may consider, but unlikely for this weekend. I'll probably wait and see on most Origin players, and then,
Yeah, and I think talking about those guys backing up in soft tissue injuries and those sort of things, Cleary's the top of that list, and for that reason, I'm weighing up if I stay away and just play it safe. He might score 70 against the Eels, but you've got to back your cattle that you've got, and I'm going to have in Katoa and I'm going to have in Hughes, and I sort of backed him. Hughes went for 80 when Cleary went for 79, so it didn't burn you. And you've just sort of got to back those other players you've got, like you said. And Cleary gets injured or Haas, tries to back up, and his back goes in the first 15 minutes. It's just not worth the risk. A lot of money is a trade, potentially 2 trades to get them out of its long-term injury with only 8 or so weeks left. So Cleary and Haas, if you don't have those 2 guys in your team or one or the other, I'd just take 1 week and just play it safe.
So next one, Clinty, looking at this week then, do you have any trades lined up?
I do. And with our conversations tonight, honestly, probably a little bit has changed. One I've got at the moment is what you just mentioned, either Tarpany or Garrick. I'm quite stocked in the wing, fullback and centres, so Garrick could potentially go for me with not an issue of being short in those areas. So either a Garrick or a Tarpany for a Yao. And then potentially the other one to Aaron Clark to come in and be my hooker for the run home with either Starling or Tavanga, most likely Tavanga, going down to Suka from the Tigers. So I'll have a week cash down, Tavanga to Suka. I've already got 500k in the bank, and then it will be potentially Tarpany and Garrett to Aaron Clark and Yao. So just a cash down and some guns, which we talked about earlier. Anything for yourself trade-wise this week?
For me, I used 4 last week and it set myself up for this round. So pending nothing happening, I've got 3 trades remaining before our 8 coming. So I don't need to make anything. I've got 15 available. I can loop potentially Shibasaki with either Lucas in the centres, and then I can potentially or choose Lucas to play and loop Duncan if for whatever reason he is... Sorry, not Duncan. Who would it be? Fakiti. So, I'll weigh that up. It's basically Shibasaki or Fakiti as to who I want to play. Shiba in some hot form, but coming off the back of Origin, he may be one that takes a bit of a break.
Yeah.
But how I've set it up from last week, cashing out my players, I've got the exact money to go either Shiba or Savala straight to Cleary. Both of them have low break evens, so I can wait on it this week, and unless Cleary was to get like 120 and play, which would be devastating.
Yeah.
I should be able to make that trade easily next week, either one of them. So I've got the chance to look and see, okay, Savala looks like he's going to score 30s next to Walker. I can trade him. And same with Shiba. I can, he's probably cashed out. He's maybe got another week or two because of his 76 he scored a couple of weeks back. So
yeah,
I can hold him for a week or two and just use him as a trade out when I need it for someone else. So yeah, that's how I'm set pretty nicely.
Yeah, it sounds like you are well positioned. Nice work.
Last question then. Captaincies for this week. Are we sticking with May? Or is there someone you're willing to take a gamble
on? Yeah, this current moment, it is May. Again, still too many weeks from the finish line. I think I'm still captains-wise probably going to be with the pack for the time being. Origin guys backing up, and that's a lot of the other fantasy guns. It's probably just the pod plays, the boom or bust in Farnworth or even Mark Nwaganitiwaze. If you've got those two in your Marky Mark has the Dragons, and they can be in all sorts at times. And Farnworth, we just know that he can go boom any week. So that would probably be my two pods. But personally, I will be sitting nicely with the pack with May. What about yourself, Stevo?
I will definitely be captaining May. I think it's too safe not to at this stage. Both of us you're inside the top 1K and I'm right there. So I don't want to be making any mistakes now. I'm picking a Farnworth and he goes and gets injured. At least if May gets injured, just about everyone else is going to have him as captain as well. So you can you stick with the pack if that happens. I mean, some people might have big kahunas and bring in Cleary this week and captain him. And you never know if you were to be that brave that he would be in the starting side, even though he's not listed on. If you're that brave on Friday afternoon to do that, and he ends up playing and scores big, well, I'd love to see. I'd love to see that photo in the chat on after the game on Sunday. So that would be the only pod if you were well outside and you've kept Cleary this whole time, just to all or nothing, basically.
Yeah.
Right, we'll get into some tipping, and we'll run through this relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Starting with the Blues Maroons Wednesday night. So you and me, Clinty, Frosty, we watched the first two games together. You've gone and now ditched me for this game. I think it's something to do with your Bulldogs losing last week. But I know you're a Blues supporter. I'm the Maroon supporter. Are you confident playing in Sydney?
Look, fairly confident. I'm just slightly sad in that I'll be forced to watch the Blues win 13 plus on my cell phone while travelling away. So I would much prefer 60-inch on the wall, but you'll take what you get, and at least I won't be missing the action. So Blues 13 plus, packed out 80,000. The Blues Army will be out in force, and I just think, in awful circumstances, but that hit to Munster and his dad passing away, that is a pretty big rocket through the camp, and I'm not sure any sporting team, or certainly in Origin, has had that. And you can just see it, Maroons boys are hurting, and Slater, who's very close with him, played with him in our coaching, he's hurting, and I just don't know how they quite front up to give 110% tomorrow night. So hopefully it's close. I'm certainly not hoping for a massive blowout on the Maroons, but I think it's a tough situation that they've encountered, unfortunately. Yourself, Stevo, can they fight through it and grind out a win?
I would definitely not bet on the Maroons winning. I would say, though, they're underdogs. That's where they want to be. Munster would be disruptive for the whole camp, not having them there for all your preparation. But you never know how they respond. It could just take everyone to the next level, and it could be something that, something special for them. And that's what they're saying. And I mean, me personally, I hope that's the case. I hope it's the case for Munster. And thoughts go out to him and the family.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next game, Sharks versus Dolphins. This is probably one of the tighter games around. How are you looking?
I'm going to go Dolphins here. I think Sharks personally, and yeah, Sharks fans won't like it, but I think they're a little bit pretender. They've had that tag attached the last couple of years. Early round exits in the finals after being rock solid, and they look a little bit like that again this year, even earlier. So Dolphins on the up, Sharks on the down, and Dolphins grab it by 6.
I will go with that as well. Dolphins, when they've been winning games, they've been piling on points. I think they're going to shock the Sharks potentially. I hope so anyway, because I enjoy watching Dolphins. Knights versus Storm. This is the biggest outsider here, I think. The Storm don't have everyone back from Origin, but they're listed there potentially. I still think they get it done no matter what.
Yep, no, I'm right there with you.
Next game, Dragons versus the Roosters. Roosters with Origins playing, Walker back. Dragons have looked average off the back of a win. I'd be sticking on Roosters.
Yeah, look, Roosters, I think they were missing 5 of their 6 starting forward pack members last week, so not much you can do there. That's always tough yakka, but I'll go Roosters for a bounce back.
Sorry, Dragons didn't win last week, but they had a nice little comeback, so they the effort was there, I think, coach would say.
Yeah.
Cowboys hosting the Bulldogs. Bulldogs back to full strength, Galvin to the bench. I would love to bet on the Cowboys just to go against you, but this week I'm just not sure I can.
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys have been on the up. I'm actually looking forward to this game. Up there, it'll be probably humid conditions and another challenge for the Dogs. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good game. But Dogs by 4.
The Wires up against the Tigers in Auckland.
Warriors for a bounce back. Look, you never want an ACL to happen to your halfback, but when it happens with a bye coming up, it's probably the best timing you can get. So they've had a couple of weeks to work on their combinations and sort the game plan. And Mount Smart is a pretty tough place to go to and win. So Wires for me.
I can't bet against it. If I was picking an upset, I'm a Warriors supporter, but I've just got a weird feeling that the Tigers might come there and do a little dirty on the Warriors.
Can't be happening, eh?
I would be devastated. Warriors need to get this win to stay in that top 4. I've got a couple of friendly schedules, so hopefully. Eels against the Panthers. Panthers
on the up.
Panthers, I think, are too good. Even without their Origin players, I think they would be competitive in this game, but I'm picking they'll put most of them in. I think Ivan Cleary likes to do that, likes to leave them off, see how they are, and then put them in. Don't put the pressure on them. So I think most of them, maybe not To'o, they should back up, and I think they get the win there. Last game of the round, Broncos away to the Titans. Who you got?
Yeah, Broncos have found some form. Titans love to get up for this matchup. Campbell comes back. I'll go Titans for an upset. There you go.
Titans for an upset. Fafita back as well, so he
double off the bench.
That would be that would be good for the Warriors. I will stick it with the Broncos, so that will be a 1 point of difference for the weekend. I bet with the Broncos to beat you last week, so I'm happy to do that again.
Yeah, redemption for me, Titans, come on.
Right, so that's it for our tipping. We'll get into some final words. Anything you want to say to finish this off, Frosty?
Yeah, I think we talked about it earlier. It's been a common theme, but it's probably just a nice summary. Final bye, the major trap rounds where you can get hurt badly with scores and ranks. Just double check everything from trades to your playing 13. Make sure you haven't made a wee mistake with someone just sitting there on the bench that you should have in. How you're setting up your loops. There's all that fit with down the track when it comes to trades and personnel. Final team lists will be vital this round. So do your best. Check on these. I know life happens and people get busy, but do your best to just get those final team lists because Origin guys backing up, people being chucked out as a result. This final team list will be a big one for me this week. And yeah, just don't try survive the round. Lose the tunnel vision. Focus on that run home. Enjoy your Origin footy and bring on that Saturday night for a great game from the Dogs. What about yourself, Stevo?
Yeah, enjoy the weekend. I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. I'm really pumped. And then, a weekend of 3 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday.
How good.
Locking in for that. Can't wait. There's always a bit of drama, as we said, after an Origin weekend of fixtures. So there's always going to be something happen, an injury pop up. Fingers crossed it's not to our players, or to anyone really, but not the ones we own in particular. But as always, thanks everyone for watching. We'd both really appreciate it if you could give the channel a subscribe or a follow on YouTube, Spotify, and Facebook. And we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
We appreciate your support for the Fantasy HQ podcast, all things NRL fantasy. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify and Facebook, and most importantly, thanks for watching.